Well, South Africa prides itself with one of the most progressive constitutions in the world. The right to freedom of speech is enshrined in this piece of legislation. Now that we're heading to the elections, Section 27's Mark Heywood says dissenting views should not be quashed by those in power. We chat to Mark about this and what he's written over the weekend. Mark, thank you for joining us on ENCA this morning. Let's talk about your article in the Sunday Times over the weekend. What are you concerned about and what led you to this point?
Well, as you correctly said, one of the things our Constitution says is that everybody has a right to campaign not just for a political party, but also to campaign for a cause. That's what the Constitution says. And people are taking advantage of that right. People are campaigning for health, they're campaigning for education, they're campaigning for housing, all manners of things. And what we're starting to see, and what I've kind of raised a concern about, is that many people who are involved in these campaigns are beginning to experience some form of intimidation.
Personal intimidation, not just while you're out on a protest.
No, personal intimidation. I mean, there are activists from a range of organizations who are being threatened, where strange things may be happening to them.
You've had an experience. Tell us about yours.
Well, I've had an experience, which I said in the article, you know, is puzzling and causes suspicions, and I'm asking questions about it. My experience was that, you know, a few months ago, 20 police arrived at my house in the middle of the night at 1:30 in the morning saying that a burglary had been reported. Nothing had been reported. They marched in and out of the house in literally 2 minutes and were gone. But then 4 or 5 days later, my house was broken into. Nothing was stolen at all. There was evidence that cupboards had been rifled. Some people were looking for something, but I just thought it's very strange. You know, somebody breaks into a house but doesn't steal anything. What's going on? And the question that I'm asking on my own behalf, but on behalf of other activists, is what is going on? We have to stop this type of stuff quickly.
So do you think that we are going to see more of this, like you say, come election time, that protests, which we are freely allowed to, with of course the required permission to do in this country, that may be sort of clamped down? There might be a clamping down?
Well, again, I don't want to exaggerate, so I'm not saying that this is orchestrated, but what I'm saying is that some politicians use language that suggests that organizations like Section 27 are, quote, counter-revolutionary. Some politicians use language saying we have to eliminate our opponents. If you use language like that, other people take it as a signal to justify intimidation. Some people within the police may take it as a signal to spy on and to watch activists. Now, that is wrong. It's unlawful, it's unconstitutional, and we have to stop it. And I do think that, you know, as we get into election period, there's a probability that this will increase, because elections mean possible loss of office. Loss of office means possible loss of income. Loss of office, in our context, also means loss of access to tenders, loss of access to all sorts of things. So it can become dirty, and as I keep saying, we can't allow it.
Do you find that there are any particular causes that are sort of the people involved are falling victim? Are there any particular causes, or just
I think
those who are
no, I don't think so. I mean, I know, you know, there's a group in Durban called Abatlale Baz.
Yes, we heard about the Cato Crest incident,
right,
where the teenager was shot.
There's been a very focused attack on them, but teachers that we work with, healthcare workers that we work with, are subject to different types of intimidation. So it's across the spectrum, and it's kind of low level at the moment, but it's uncalled for and it's unwarranted. And that's why, you know, in the article, one of the things that I say is that the government and political parties should publicly denounce this type of thing. They should publicly say that constructive criticism, even mobilization and protest, is within the law. It's part of our democracy.
There is a right to protest in this
There is a right.
Do you feel people are becoming more and more afraid to protest? Let me take you back to Marikana, which is one of the biggest stories today as well, that South Africans are afraid to protest since then.
Well, I think protest these days can carry a risk of violence, even if you are involved in peaceful protest. People won't want to go on to demonstrations if they fear that the police might open fire on them when they're engaged in peaceful process. So I'm not seeing that people are saying, I'm not going to go and march, I'm scared. But the police should not threaten people. The police are there to protect people, including the marchers who are there to exercise a democratic right.
And very quickly for us, Mark, what would you like to see happening in the build-up to elections? What would be your message to government today?
Well, I've said three things in the article. I've said, first of all, there should be public statements made by political parties that protest and exposure is permissible. It's not so-called counter-revolutionary. Second, political parties should disclose their own sources of funding, as should organisations such as the one that I run, Section 27. And third, I've said that politicians should subject themselves to lifestyle audits, because the more openness, the more transparency around all aspects of the political process, the better the chance of people making informed decisions about who they support and why they support a particular group.
And making an impact with their protest.
And making an impact with their protests, yes.
Thank you very much. That was Section 27 Executive Director Mark Heywood.
News that moves. enca.com.